Here's a question for you. Who do you consider to be the ultimate big bad of the DC universe? Chances are that most of you gave the same answer: Darkseid. He is the villain often portrayed to be a threat that forces all heroes to team up. But Darkseid is more than just another villain for Superman to punch. He's one of the new gods, and exists on a higher dimensional plane. Darkseid that we usually see in the comics is just one avatar of true Darkseid, who is immeasurably powerful. As explained by his son Orion, Darkseid is a universal constant. If he were to die, a new Darkseid would emerge. The world simply cannot exist without him. However, that would change. After the Flash severed Earth Prime from the wider multiverse, Darkseid's isolation from his other aspects across reality began to transform him into one fully fledged entity. The recent influx of power awakened hunger for knowledge he could sense but couldn't understand. Probably for the first time in his life, Darkseid secludes himself, seeking to find the only being that could provide answers: the Spectre. To achieve his goal, he began construction of a machine which required his blood. He cut off his hand and fed it to the machine, but it wasn't enough. At this moment, his son Kalibak entered the scene, informing him that he had created a new breed of soldiers and they should attack Earth. Darkseid, however, refuses and orders them to leave. Kalibak tells them that he will help with whatever he's seeking. In response, Darkseid sacrifices his own son to the machine, giving it enough power. He begins his quest by attacking both heaven and hell, seeking Spectre, but he wasn't at either of these places. Both angels and demons urged him to stop his quest, even offering him peace or power, but Darkseid refused. He eventually finds Spectre, who's imprisoned by Eclipso. After outsmarting and defeating the villain, Darkseid finds Jim Corrigan, the Spectre's host. At this moment, a group known as Quintessin arrived, a team of powerful beings who oversee monumental events. They inform Darkseid that his quests have been foolish all along, as Spectre will not bond with somebody against its wish. This is where Darkseid reveals that the machine he constructed was a miracle machine that could grant him any wish. He wished to be bonded with the Spectre, and his desire came true. In order to fight his control, Spectre teleports to the Justice League, but at the same time reveals answers to Darkseid. It explains that the multiverse is in a constant balance between two primal forces: hope, which pushes reality outwards to expand, embodied by Superman, and constraint, which holds the expansion back, embodied by Darkseid. He tells Darkseid that he's a primal and essential part of reality. It also states that the multiverse will soon return to normal, and Darkseid's power will fade once again. The Dark God saw a glimpse of his existence and understood that Spectre is right. He plays an integral part of the universe, but Darkseid was not willing to accept this. As the Justice League separates him from the Spectre, he declares that Darkseid ends and allows himself to die. He awakens in a realm known as the Elseworld, which is in its primal state. Using his power, he shapes this world in his own image. While the core of the Prime Earth is hope and justice embodied by Superman, this new Earth centers around despair embodied by Darkseid. He accelerated this Earth's creation, leading to a new universe where superheroes exist, but lack integral parts of themselves, as well as advantages they usually have, resulting in them being underdogs. This universe became known as the Absolute Universe, which is a setting for a new comic book series disconnected from main continuity, showing DC's heroes in a different image, without important aspects of their character. Batman, for example, isn't a billionaire, Wonder Woman wasn't raised among the Amazons, and so on. So far, there have been 6 series in the Absolute Universe, and in today's video we'll explore each one in detail. So without wasting any time, let's explore the first entry, Absolute Batman. Like mentioned above, superheroes in this reality lack their usual advantages. Instead of being born into a wealthy family, Absolute Batman comes from a working-class household in the impoverished neighborhood known as Crime Alley. His mother is a social worker and his father is a teacher. He attended his father's school and was renowned for his academic achievements, considered one of the brightest kids in Gotham, especially in engineering. What's particularly interesting about this reality is that some of Batman's usual enemies, such as Killer Croc, Riddler, Joker, Penguin, Two-Face, and Catwoman are his childhood friends. They share a close bond and grew up together. When Bruce was 10, he entered a Young Engineers competition where participants had to design a bridge in the shape of an animal. Bruce chose a bat, thinking it was intimidating, but when he showed his design to his father, Thomas didn't like it. He explained that something meant to help people in need shouldn't be intimidating. Thomas shared a story about his own father who died from a heart attack. He once considered becoming a doctor, like his Prime Universe counterpart, so that no other child would have to experience losing a father, but because of Bruce's birth, he couldn't attend medical school. Instead, he found his true calling as a teacher, realizing that preparing kids for the world could be just as impactful. Taking his father's lesson to heart, Bruce redesigned the bridge to be more practical and lightweight enough to be dropped into devastated areas. With this design, he won the competition, and his entire grade was granted a free trip to the zoo. Although Bruce described this as the happiest day of his life, it soon became the worst. During the trip, a mass shooting occurred. Thomas, who was chaperoning, ushered all the children into the bat enclosure and tackled the gunman, saving the children at the cost of his own life. This moment haunted Bruce for the rest of his life and traumatized him permanently. Another major difference from the Prime Universe is that Martha survives and remains alive. After his father's death, Bruce was rescued by Jim Gordon. Although he became distant and withdrawn at first, his friends stayed by his side, supporting him through his dark period. He grew especially close to Selina, and the two began a romantic relationship, though she eventually left Gotham. Later in life, Bruce began his quest to rid Gotham of violence and injustice. He dropped out of school and trained with his friend Waylon, Killer Croc in the Prime Universe. He studied with Edward, the Riddler, became a juvenile delinquent with Oswald, and committed burglaries with Selina. When he felt ready, he returned to school and excelled academically, focusing on subjects that would help his mission. He later interned at City Hall with his friend Harvey Dent to better understand the politics that governed Gotham. He first operated out of a garage and designed his original costume to be as intimidating as possible, equipping it with fangs and carrying a gun. However, during his first mission, he remembered his father's lesson and realized that his theatrical approach was wrong. He redesigned the suit to be more subdued and adopted a different strategy. Instead of focusing on street gangs, which he saw as pointless, he targeted their suppliers, only to discover that the city's entire system was corrupt. Bruce left Gotham again on a soul-searching journey to figure out the core of Batman's mission. He concluded that the only way to truly solve the city's problems was to take the fight directly to the rich and powerful. Upon returning, he began working as a civil engineer and used empty floors of skyscrapers he helped build as his bases, giving him strongholds throughout the city. This marked the true birth of Batman. His new suit was bulletproof and equipped with throwing knives. The pointy ears could be used as weapons, and the bat symbol on his chest doubled as a battle axe. He also hid massive armored Batmobiles and chambers across his bases. At this point, Jim Gordon became the city's mayor and was close friends with Martha, who might be set up to become the future mayor. Jim's daughter Barbara is one of the few honest cops in Gotham and occasionally assists Batman. The bat signal in this universe comes from the zoo where Bruce's father was killed. At Bruce's request, the zoo was converted into a memorial that shines a light into the sky every year to commemorate the tragedy. Alfred is also featured here, but instead of being a butler, he's a British intelligence agent assigned to observe Gotham. This references his past in the main continuity, where Alfred also worked in the Secret Services. He eventually uncovered Batman's identity, but Bruce already knew he was being watched and confronted him, even stealing his bike. Over time, they became friendly, and Alfred grew into a mentor figure for Bruce. One of the most interesting aspects of this universe is Batman's rogues. His first enemy is Black Mask, leader of a brutal gang called the Party Animals, who are destabilizing cities worldwide for unknown reasons. It's later revealed that he's working for the Joker, who influences almost all events from the shadows. He hasn't made a full appearance in Absolute Batman yet, appearing only in flashbacks and cameos, but seems to possess immense wealth and power. One of the most unique villains of the Absolute Universe is Mr. Freeze. He's the son of Victor and Nara Freeze, scientists who studied what ice could hold from the ancient past. They also founded a company in Gotham, V-Corps, which would freeze people with rare diseases until a cure could be found. At some point, their son, Victor Jr., developed a rare illness, which led to his parents freezing him as well. The ice they used, however, contained an ancient mutagenic bacterium, but they froze him anyway, believing that no cure could be found in time, and this was the only way to save him. Surprisingly, it worked, and Victor emerged healthy, but the bacterium took a toll. It affected him psychologically, and he gained the ability to transform into a disfigured monster with ice powers and enough strength to take down Batman. His parents also developed an illness and were frozen. In their absence, Victor Jr. continued their work, becoming the CEO. His services were sought by the wealthy who believed they would achieve immortality, while in reality, he infected them with the same virus, which transformed them into mindless zombies under his control. He's also responsible for killing Bruce's friend Matches Malone. Arkham in this reality is known as Ark-M, a mysterious facility constructed by the Joker for still unrevealed purposes. Bruce's friend Waylon is kidnapped and taken there, where he's transformed into Killer Croc. Probably the most terrifying villain for Absolute Batman is this universe's Bane. He's so ridiculously huge that he even towers over Batman, making him look tiny in comparison. He comes from the fictional Caribbean nation of Santa Prisca, a resource-rich island constantly embroiled in war, with various foreign nations seeking to conquer it. Bane's father was a freedom fighter, like his father before him, and so on. He was born on the battlefield and grew up in the militia, knowing nothing but war his entire life. During his youth, he joined an assault on the island's capital, but 3 days later, foreign troops intervened and defeated them. Bane, alongside his comrades, was sent to a remote and brutal prison. There, the cells would occasionally flood, he suffered from hunger, had to eat rats to survive, and killed other prisoners who attacked him and his father. After 11 years, they broke out using the skeletons of sea creatures to create weapons. They sailed away from the prison, but on the coast, instead of meeting the army as expected, they encountered the Joker. He addressed Bane by his real name and said he had a proposition. They talked, and after negotiations were over, Bane returned to his father and, surprising everyone, killed him. Joker explained that Bane would not fix his country. If he overthrew the current government, another just as bad would replace it. He offered his wealth and power to protect the island in exchange for Bane becoming his enforcer. To prove his loyalty, he was ordered to kill his father. Bane began killing diplomats and politicians around the world in Joker's name, and in return, Joker kept his word, and Santa Prisca prospered. Bane built a family and visited them on the island. To fulfill his task, he was injected with venom, which not only amplified his strength and size, but also his mind, giving him photographic memory and mastery of all forms of combat and strategy. He also sought to recruit others with strong wills for similar experiments. Apparently, this universe's Deathstroke and KG Beast went through similar ordeals. He later came into conflict with Batman. Using his size to overpower the Dark Knight, he took him to Ark-M, where Batman was kept for around 3 months. After his escape, Bane decided to break him psychologically and went after his friends. He shatters every bone in Oswald's body while avoiding his vital organs, leaving him permanently disfigured, and gives Edward permanent brain damage, causing him to question everything and accept nothing as fact. Finally, he burnt half of Harvey's face. By this point, Bruce's friends know about his dual identity. Harvey blames him for everything, but reassures him that he only hates him half the time, hinting at a potential future where Bruce's childhood friends may become his enemies. Absolute Superman. The writer Jason Aaron reinvents Superman as a lone hero of the oppressed and downtrodden, adding moral complexity to the character while still keeping him heroic and faithful to the original. The class division and wealth disparity play a central theme in the Absolute Superman series, and to explore those ideas, Krypton is also reinvented. Krypton here is a strict society with a very rigid class system. Each Kryptonian belongs to a guild, which they'll remain a part of for the rest of their lives. The most prestigious and sought-after position is membership in the Science Guild, a group of elite clerics and scientists who rule the planet. They hold almost all the power on Krypton and are incredibly corrupt. Both of Superman's parents are exceptional geniuses, but were denied entry to the Science Guild. His father, Jor-El, was a brilliant engineer, but he criticized the Science Guild's damage to the environment during his graduation speech and wasn't allowed among their ranks. His mother Lara was also a genius, one of the most brilliant mechanics on Krypton who dreamed about interstellar travel, but she too criticized the Science Guild for not investing enough in space exploration and was barred from entry as well. They were both relegated to the Labor Guild, the lowest class in Kryptonian society. Each guild is required to wear a uniform showing their status, and the symbol of the Labor Guild is the iconic S symbol worn by Superman. Despite the low status, Jor-El wore his uniform with pride and taught his son Cal that laborers were the last Kryptonians to work with their hands. He became a miner, while his wife worked as a mechanic on a farm. They lived on a farm known as the Redlands, far away from the great Kryptonian cities. This is where Kal-El was born and raised. If you didn't notice by this point, Superman in this universe wasn't sent to Earth as a baby. He lived on Krypton for years before arriving on Earth, and his time there greatly influenced his outlook and moral compass. While working in a mine, Jor-El made a horrifying discovery. The mine collapsed and radioactive clouds were released. Other strange phenomena were observed around the planet, such as dead animals, boiling seas, and volcanoes going dry. Jor-El concluded that Krypton was dying, but the media and the ruling class denied any links between those phenomena, insisting they were isolated incidents. Lara began designing a spaceship for the worst possible scenario. They first kept their son in the dark about the unfolding events, but Kal would soon discover the truth by himself. While on a trip to Krypton's capital, he saw even more strange phenomena, such as laborers dying from green radiation. He posted about this on his school's online board, but it was deleted immediately. Upon arriving at the capital, he noticed that the Science Guild was strangely absent. Coincidentally, at this moment, his father was visiting to warn them about a disaster, but was ignored and arrested for heresy. His father was imprisoned, but Kal and Lara broke him out with the help of Krypto. Kal then discovered spaceships near the capital and realized that the Science Guild knew about the disaster and planned evacuation only for themselves, while leaving the rest of Krypton to die. Kal published the story online and it spread rapidly. The El family returned to their home. At first, Kal thought his parents wanted to only send him, but Lara revealed that she had constructed a large spaceship, fitting their entire family as well as a dozen more people. She, however, still wished that she could save everyone. Even though they were pursued by the Kryptonian police, the spaceship took off successfully. Meanwhile, all the other spaceships were destroyed either due to rioters or natural disasters. For a moment, it seemed like the El family would flee to safety, but before they could leave the atmosphere, the ship was destroyed by a rogue chunk of the exploding planet. Each passenger spacesuit formed a personal rocket ship with artificial intelligence around them, as Lara had intended. Kal watched all the other spaceships get destroyed. As the communication was severed, he realized that he was the only one alive. He drifted through space for months in the tiny spaceship, covering millions of light years, with the ship's artificial intelligence, Sol, as his only companion. After traveling 9 million light years over 17 months and 14 days, they arrived near the solar system, but Kal was exhausted. He asked Sol to release him into the sun, but the AI refused, insisting that keeping Kal safe was its prime directive. Sol then discovered that the third planet in this system supported life, but as they got closer to the sun, Kal's powers began to activate. He felt intense heat as he absorbed the sunlight. His ship crashed on Earth, landing in Kansas, where he was discovered by the Kent family. Although they were frightened at first, Martha Kent believed he was an angel and took him home. For some time, he remained unconscious, occasionally unleashing bursts of fiery energy and suffering from extreme fever. Eventually, his body adapted to Earth's environment, and he woke up healthy, empowered by the sun. He now possessed abilities typically associated with Superman: flight, super strength, heat vision, and more, but unlike his prime counterpart, absolute Superman could burst into flames, a result of absorbing the sun's heat. Although he couldn't communicate with the Kents at first, he understood that they were kind people and likened Smallville to the red fields of Krypton. He helped the Kents around the farm using his powers. Eventually, Sol came back online after recharging, and using its advanced algorithms, it downloaded the English language into Kal's mind, allowing him to finally introduce himself to the Kents. However, his time in Smallville was short. The main antagonist of the series is a corporation called Lazarus, an evil conglomerate with a private army known as Peacemakers. Lazarus runs countless mines worldwide, paying workers minimal wages, and even possesses technology that allows them to control the weather, which they use to disrupt small farms like the Kents. Sol disabled their drones, but this drew Lazarus's attention. Peacemakers ambushed the Kent family, forcing Kal to flee. He became a lone hero, flying around the world and sabotaging Lazarus's operations. He would target factories and mines where workers were exploited, removing hazards and completing all the labor overnight so that workers would still get paid. Kal became a hero of the oppressed, who dubbed him Superman after the symbol on his chest, which he continued to wear proudly after Krypton's destruction. Even while on the run, he occasionally returned to Smallville, helping people in town and visiting Martha in her nursing home. Lazarus made capturing Superman their top priority. They got their chance in Brazil, where Cal helped mine workers but neglected to recharge himself with sunlight. This led to another direct conflict with the Peacemakers who, as Sol observed, possessed alien technology. Eventually, Cal was captured by Agent Lois Lane. Throughout the series, Lois's attitude changed as she began to question her loyalty to Lazarus, eventually siding with Superman. Another faction in the comic is the Omega Men, a designated terrorist organization that also targets Lazarus. However, Superman refuses to work with them because they use lethal force, while Cal refuses to kill under any circumstances. Among the Omega Men's lower ranks is Jimmy Olsen, who joined the group to help bring down Lazarus. While most people know about Absolute Superman, not everyone is familiar with Absolute Peacemaker. Christopher Smith appears in the series as a member of the Peacemakers, ruthlessly enforcing Lazarus's rule. Christopher is one of Lazarus's most fanatically loyal agents, but he's also unstable. After being defeated by Superman in Brazil, he felt humiliated and opened fire on civilians, but his hands shook too much to aim properly, and no one was hurt. Racked with guilt, he requested to be discharged, but Brainiac, one of the company's higher-ups, insisted he was fine and sent him back into the field. When Smith was defeated by Superman a second time, he again attacked civilians, this time fatally, massacring innocent bystanders. This enraged Superman and made him question his approach for the first time. He wanted to find Christopher, but feared what he might do if he did. By this point, Smith was completely insane, but Lazarus promoted him to captain and enhanced him with cybernetic upgrades, using him as bait to lure Superman. The life of Absolute Brainiac is fascinating. Before arriving on Earth, he was part of an alien civilization known as the Brainiac Collective, where every individual was called Brainiac and distinguished only by unique identification codes. The collective was dedicated to gathering knowledge, but its society was even more rigid than Krypton's. Only Brainiacs ranked level 88 and above were permitted to acquire knowledge, while the Brainiac who would eventually end up on Earth was a level 0, the lowest possible class. His sole purpose was to shovel the bodies of dead Brainiacs. His work shift was to last his entire life, confined to a single room without reprieve. After around 3,000 days of shoveling, one of the bodies turned out to still be alive and attacked him, damaging his brain, but Brainiac killed the attacker in self-defense. The injury to his brain, combined with his prolonged isolation, slowly drove him insane. At one point, he even propped up dead bodies as if they were alive and spoke to them to cope with the solitude. After 50,000 days, the bodies finally stopped coming. When he left the room, he found the spaceship completely deserted, with the captain dead. He shoveled the captain's body as well and then declared himself the true Brainiac. He wandered the cosmos alone, capturing and imprisoning cities he found interesting in bottles and occasionally torturing people for his amusement. Eventually, he arrived on Earth in 1938 and formed an alliance with Ra's al Ghul, the founder of Lazarus and the series' main antagonist. In exchange for help, he received resources for his increasingly deranged experiments. Al Ghul is portrayed as an immortal man who supposedly worships Darkseid and has even uncovered one of the God Boxes. He founded his company in the 19th century, starting with the fur trade, then expanding into railroads, and eventually building it into a global conglomerate. Al Ghul believed that unchecked technological and industrial progress would ultimately destroy the world, and he became convinced that only he could resurrect it. He targeted Superman not only for interfering with his operations, but also because he believed Superman could be the son and heir he had never been able to have. Absolute Wonder Woman. While in the main reality, Diana grew up on Paradise Island alongside other Amazons, in the Absolute universe, she's raised in Hell, alone as the last Amazon. Around the time Diana was born, Amazons committed an unknown offense against the gods. For that, Zeus condemned them to an eternity of imprisonment and took Diana away from them. He instructed Apollo to deliver Diana to Circe, a sorceress who was imprisoned in Hell. Upon delivering the baby to the witch, Apollo gave her no instructions, only informing her that the Amazons had been punished and that from now on, even saying the word Amazon was forbidden. At first, Circe appeared to be indifferent, leaving Diana to her fate. But after a snake slithered toward Diana and tried to eat her, she disposed of it immediately. This impressed Circe, and she began caring for her. Settling in a place known as the Wild Isle of Hell, they slowly built their home. Throughout the years, they were attacked by beasts, demons, and lost souls who sought to kill Diana, but she easily overpowered them all, even befriending some of them. As Diana grew older, she began to sense that there was a word they weren't allowed to speak. Although Circe couldn't utter the word Amazon, Diana could speak it. When asked for its meaning, Circe explained her origins. saying that she's an Amazon, part of ancient warriors who protected humanity from the oldest of monsters who sought to feast on it. She realized that the gods didn't want her to know her true heritage, but Circe urged her to become what she was always meant to be. One of the most interesting changes in Absolute Wonder Woman is how the comic portrays the gods. While in DC, Greek gods are usually portrayed with human appearances, in Absolute Wonder Woman, they look otherworldly and bizarre. Hades, for example, is a creature of blue flames, while Hecate, the patron goddess of Circe, is a bright creature with 6 arms and a dark, shadowy face. We see a flashback in which Circe was praying to Hecate, asking her why she allowed her dedicated worshipper to be condemned to hell and why she was forced to raise a child that was not her own. The goddess explained that she and some others created a plan to end Zeus's tyranny and that there's a powerful game afoot. We see another flashback in which Diana, in her childhood, battles another beast in hell. Although she refused to fight at first, she had no choice after the beast threatened to attack innocent creatures that roamed around them. Diana was defeated and was discovered by Circe. She conversed with Hecate once again and told her that it was too soon for her to become a warrior, but the goddess insisted that, if anything, it was too late. Diana was forged to be a weapon against the gods, and the very point of her existence was to be an undefeatable weapon in the heart of the system, to destroy it from within. When Circe asked why they made a weapon in the form of a kind little girl, Hecate replied that the gods are dismissive of little girls and she would be unseen. They designed her with kindness because it is a concept that monsters like Zeus do not understand. And finally, she is herself, another concept the gods cannot grasp. Sooner or later, Diana would have to fulfill her destiny. At some point in her youth, a stranger washed up on their island. He was an American soldier, Stephen Trevor. Upon learning that he ended up in hell, he first had an existential crisis, but then thanked Diana and Circe for taking him in. He became close friends with Diana and helped them to survive in hell. Diana later discovered a spell in Circe's books that would allow her to return Stephen back to Earth, but Circe advised against it as it required a great sacrifice. This is where Diana came to the conclusion that Stephen's arrival wasn't an accident, but a test. If she were to become a savior of mankind, she'd have to make sacrifices, and she could not fail her first mission. She sacrificed her right arm to make the spell work, and Stephen returned to Earth. Circe later forged a magical construct to replace Diana's lost arm. Diana and Stephen reunited after she left Hell to protect humanity from ancient monsters, continuing the Amazonian legacy. She settled on the American West Coast in Gateway City. Armed with a massive blade, she battled ancient beasts, and her existence became known to the public, who gave her the name Wonder Woman. Unlike her prime counterpart, Absolute Wonder Woman relies more on magic and frequently uses spells in battle as a result of being raised by a sorceress. To aid her mission, she has a mount known as Pegasus, an undead winged horse, and her loyal companion. While Prime Wonder Woman has the Lasso of Truth as her primary and most iconic weapon, Absolute Wonder Woman actually has 3 different lassos. The properties of one are still unknown, but the other 2 are deadly. The first is known as Nemesis, a weapon forged by Circe from the remains of a basilisk. Diana later scaled a massive mountain where the Titan Prometheus was imprisoned. She considered him a champion of humanity, bringing them fire and prosperity in defiance of the gods. She freed him and convinced the eagles sent by Zeus to feast on him to leave the Titan alone. In exchange, Diana asked for a sample of Prometheus's blood to empower her lasso. The god happily obliged and also gifted her the aforementioned Pegasus as a parting gift. The Nemesis lasso binds and burns in proportion to its target's sins. Her second lasso, named Sacrifice, is perhaps her deadliest weapon, as it transforms the body and mind of any living being it touches, with the shape of the transformation determined by what it was used on. Diana uses this as a last resort weapon. She used Sacrifice to defeat a deadly monster known as Tetracide, a creature that could unleash a sound capable of killing anyone who heard it. Surprisingly, she used the lasso on herself, transforming into Medusa to defeat the monster, but then attacked the city in her transformed state. Thankfully, Steve snapped her back to her true self. Among those helping her defeat Tetracide was historian Barbara Minerva, who in the main continuity is her arch-enemy Cheetah. Later in the story, Diana discovered a strange government facility known as Area 41, built on top of an ancient maze. Some creatures were trapped inside, while others were brought there later. Wonder Woman eventually discovers that one of the Amazons was also trapped there and set out to rescue her. Inside the maze, she encountered mythical creatures such as the Minotaur, sirens, and fishmen. The maze was ruled by a woman known as Clea, one of Wonder Woman's enemies in the Prime universe. In this universe, however, Clea's people, the Atlanteans, were believed to be extinct, and she is potentially the last of her kind. When Diana finally rescued her Amazon sister, the woman was struck by lightning and disappeared immediately after stepping out of the maze. She was transported to the rest of the Amazons and revealed to them that Diana was alive. Finally, Veronica Cale, the person overseeing the facility, revealed that she was keeping several of Wonder Woman's other villains captive. Among those she had captured was Zatanna, who is set up to be one of Wonder Woman's future adversaries. The Absolute Martian Manhunter. The most unique, experimental, and downright bizarre series that came out of the Absolute Universe is, without a doubt, Absolute Martian Manhunter. This character is perhaps the most different from his Prime counterpart. While in the Prime universe, Martian Manhunter is the last survivor of Mars, in the Absolute universe, he's an abstract alien entity that exists only within the realm of thought and bonds with a human host, FBI agent John Jones. This alien is not even from Mars. It's said to originate from a galaxy so distant that its light will never reach Earth. It's referred to as the Martian because it's a concept John's mind can grasp. The story follows John Jones, an FBI agent who originally lived in Washington, D.C., but was reassigned by his superiors to Middleton, Colorado, where he was tasked with studying and preventing terrorist attacks. A year into his service, John was caught in a terrorist attack. The entire building he was in was blown to pieces, and miraculously John was the sole survivor. He didn't know it at the time, but the reason he survived was because an abstract alien entity had bonded with him. Interestingly, John was nicknamed Martian by his coworkers due to his scatterbrained and often distant personality. Following the incident, the entity began affecting John. He started to see so-called thought smokes around people, which he could inhale to see images of their minds. These smoke images recur throughout the comic, and John himself is shown to be a heavy cigarette smoker. While investigating the terrorist attack, he spoke with the killer's mother, but became overwhelmed by the smoke. When he went outside, he began inhaling even more smoke from passers-by. This is when the Martian revealed itself to John, explaining the truth of his survival and proclaiming that it and John were now one. At first, John ignored the entity, but it soothed and comforted him by showing him warm memories. He continued to doubt the Martian's existence, thinking doctors must have missed something, but his doubt faded when the Martian informed him about an impending mass shooting. John didn't believe it at first, but after receiving a call from his superior confirming the attack, he was convinced. He moved to a neighborhood known as Little Damascus, where an armed shooter was killing innocent people. Using the Martian's mind reading, John learned the shooter's childhood friend's name and posed as him to distract the attacker. Meanwhile, the Martian entered the shooter's mind and literally removed hatred and brain rot. When the Martian left, the shooter immediately began expressing remorse and regret, but he was shot on the spot by police. The Martian explained that the White Martian, a being similar to itself, had begun negatively influencing people's thoughts and increasing violence around the city. It sought a partner to counter its activities. Another case investigated by Jones involved 24 Middletown residents, who had no connection to each other, each burning a homeless person on the streets simultaneously. John interrogated each killer, but none could explain why they'd done it, though he saw a cloud of white smoke around all of them. Sometime later, another strange incident occurred. Several random buildings across the city were set on fire simultaneously. John initially thought the incidents might be random, but the Martian assured him that there was an implicit order behind everything. He noticed white smoke at each crime scene. John determined that whatever was behind the attacks wasn't burning physical houses, but homes, what each individual considered home. Using this, he predicted the next target was a homeless shelter known as Sunnyside. A crowd under the influence of white smoke attacked the shelter, throwing Molotov cocktails and setting it alight. John called the police and fire department, then rushed to Sunnyside himself to save people while the Martian battled their traumas and negative thoughts. A woman made of white smoke informed him that it knew about the Martian's existence. Meanwhile, John was neglecting his family, becoming distant from his wife and son and rarely being home. In a conversation with his wife, Bridget, she explained that she accepted some secrecy due to his line of work, but lately she felt like she was living with a stranger. Bridget told John she wanted him to move out, but before they could continue, a citywide blackout caused by the White Martian plunged the city into darkness. It seemed to last for weeks, with no sun rising. Chaos spread through the city, and John felt its effects. During this time, John was run over by psychopaths. While unconscious, the Martian floated in darkness. As it descended deeper into the void, it saw an image of Darkseid. With the Martian's help, John fought off his attackers and returned to his wife and son, who were in danger. He fought the man controlled by the White Martian physically, while the Martian engaged in an abstract mental battle with the White Martian. Although John defeated the man, a mob controlled by the aliens stormed his house, overwhelming him, until he was rescued by his wife. He reconciled with her, admitting he had been distant and secretive but didn't want to live that way anymore. This apparently unlocked a higher level of telepathic ability, allowing him to momentarily get everyone in Middleton to breathe in each other's thought smoke. People everywhere began to feel empathy and compassion, weakening the White Martian's power. It was later seemingly destroyed by John's Martian. John's son Tyler, however, was seemingly unaffected by everything that happened. Absolute Flash. The Flash of the Absolute Universe is the youngest superhero of this reality. He got his powers when he was 15 years old, and unlike his Prime counterpart, he didn't have a legacy to follow nor a mentor. In fact, he doesn't seem to possess the Speed Force at all, implying that it isn't accessible in the Absolute Universe. Wally is the son of Colonel Rudy West, and moved around the country a lot as a kid, as his father was frequently reassigned to different locations. He had trouble making friends because he was constantly changing towns. He was close with his mother, who helped him cope with his loneliness and anxiety, but he became more withdrawn and distant after her death. When he was 15, his father was assigned as commander of a government facility, Fort Fox, where a top-secret experiment known as Project Olympus was being conducted. One of the scientists working there is Eleanor Thawne, this universe's equivalent of the Reverse Flash. Her true intentions have not yet been fully revealed, but we get a glimpse in a flashback. In 1944, a scientist named Thawne and his partner Jay Garrick were studying a mysterious form of energy. The experiment went wrong, and while Garrick tried to shut it down, Thawne wanted to continue, pushing Garrick into the reactor. His body was destroyed, but his consciousness seemed to persist within the energy field. Another scientist working on Project Olympus is Barry Allen. Barry befriended Wally, noticing his loneliness, but also recognizing his intelligence. He offered him a part-time job at the facility, but Wally's father was firmly against it. This led to a fight between Wally and his dad, after which Wally stormed out of the house and visited Barry's lab. Unfortunately, at the worst possible moment. Barry was conducting an experiment on an advanced machine, and Wally was caught in the energy field, turning him into streaks of lightning. Rudy arrived and yelled at Barry, demanding answers. Suddenly, Wally released a bolt of lightning that struck Barry. Terrified, Wally ran away from the facility toward the desert, unaware that Barry was tethered to him. When he stopped, he realized Barry was dead. To find his son, Rudy dispatched a special operations team known as the Rogues. A flashback issue reveals more about them. They were American soldiers stationed in Syria who took a bribe from a foreign government, leading to their discharge, disgrace, and the nickname Rogues. 6 months before Wally's accident, Rudy contacted each rogue and offered them a chance to get their lives back on track by participating in a highly dangerous experiment. The goal was to turn them into weapons, and they were given strange pieces of equipment by Barry and Thawne. The rogues soon realized their weapons might be of alien origin. Each rogue is modeled after a Flash villain from the Prime universe: Captain Cold, Golden Glider, Trickster, and Captain Boomerang. To capture Wally, they used this universe's Gorilla Grodd, who is a tiny monkey with psychic powers. Grodd, however, befriended Wally and became his sidekick. Together, they escaped and found temporary refuge in a youth homeless shelter, though Wally struggled to find enough food, as his powers required far more calories than the average teenager. At the shelter, Wally befriended another runaway, Linda Park, his girlfriend in the main universe. We later learned that the incident that gave him his powers also destroyed the lab, releasing other experimental subjects into the wild, many of whom are based on Flash's villains. Wally encountered and fought Heatwave, and somehow his powers turned Heatwave back into a human. He later battled the Weather Wizard, who was creating storms. When struck by his lightning, Wally was unharmed. In fact, it replenished his powers, allowing him to defeat the villain easily. The Rogues then approached Wally and made a surprising proposition. They offered to team up, suggesting that they all go rogue together. Absolute Green Lantern. Finally, there's the Green Lantern. As you probably already know, in the Prime universe there have been several characters who have taken on the mantle of Green Lantern, and the Absolute comics reinvent some of them. Hal Jordan isn't a fearless Air Force pilot, instead he's a dealer of collectible toys in the small town of Evergreen. John Stewart, like his Prime counterpart, is an architect, but all of his projects are located outside his hometown. Joe Mullen, the most recent person to become a Green Lantern in the main continuity, is a cop who moved to Coast City but returned to Evergreen after her divorce. Despite the end of her marriage, she still kept her wedding ring. Guy Gardner is the sheriff of Evergreen who worked with Joe, and Simon Baz appears to be a government agent. Kyle Rayner and Jessica Cruz haven't appeared in this universe yet. The comic also reinvents the character of Abin Sur, the alien who originally gave Hal Jordan his ring. Here, Abin Sur is not a name, but a title. It's explained that there are 4 levels of the light. The lowest level is known as Card, or Chaotic Action. The name is actually a reference to the weapons of Quard, villains from the Antimatter universe. Then there is Rao, Restraint from Action, also the name of Krypton's god. This is followed by Sur, the green light or correct action, and the highest level is Aur, total understanding or enlightenment. It's worth noting that only 7 issues of the Absolute Green Lantern have been released so far, and these concepts haven't been fully explained yet, so we'll probably learn more in upcoming storylines. Abin means guardian or controller, so Abin Sur means controller of the green light. The other levels of light also have corresponding colors. Rao is red, Card appears to be a black light, or more accurately the absence of light, and the highest level is gold or yellow. While in the Prime universe, lanterns derive their power from emotions, in the Absolute universe, they depend on their level of enlightenment. This hierarchy was established by the Owens, and not everyone agrees with their structure. Some believe Card to be the highest level, and those who do are known as the Black Stars, who combine elements of both the yellow and black lanterns of the Prime universe. The Black Stars are a tyrannical space empire in the Absolute universe that tries to enforce its law. They believe enlightenment is useless. For them, will is all that matters. Their primary goal is to destroy other lanterns across the universe. Their agents are known as Black Hands, and among their ranks is Kilowog, one of Hal Jordan's closest friends in the Prime reality. We see him fight Green Lanterns as well as Tomar Ray, who in the Absolute universe wields the red light of Rao. Perhaps the most terrifying member of the Black Stars is Mogo. In the main continuity, Mogo is a living sentient planet and a member of the Green Lantern Corps. Here, he's the most powerful member of the Black Stars, capable of destroying entire worlds. We see Mogo annihilate a planet with 7 billion people just to get 3 enemies. Finally, their leader is this universe's Sinestro, who senses an anomaly on Earth. One of Abin Sur's tasks was to find planets targeted by Mogo and seek recruits. He would choose a settlement on an alien planet and judge its residents. He arrived at Evergreen with this mission in mind and surrounded the town with a green force field. His arrival caused panic among the residents, who mistook him for a conqueror. He was approached by the police, led by Guy Gardner, but Joe convinced him not to escalate. When Guy showed restraint, Abin Sur seemingly obliterated him and declared that he'd been judged. Other police officers opened fire, but the alien was unharmed and struck back. Hal Jordan then intervened, grabbing an officer's gun and threatening Abin, but the alien disappeared before things could escalate. John Stewart later made an interesting discovery. Earlier, a biker crashed into the force field at full speed. His entire body was destroyed except for one thing, a golden ring. John discovered the ring wasn't even made of gold. He asked Hal to bring a yellow toy, and using it, he showed everyone that the force field didn't work on yellow objects. At that exact moment, Abin Sur returned and obliterated him as well. This enraged Hal, who thought the alien had killed 2 of his close friends. He grabbed the gun he'd acquired earlier and laced the bullets with yellow paint. Abin continued judging people, seemingly obliterating them as well, and the town was soon deserted. Hal and Joe decided to lure Abin Sur out. Joe called his name, and when the alien arrived, she asked why he had killed so many people. Abin Sur replied that he hadn't killed anyone except for one police officer during the shootout. He explained that all of these people had been transported to Oa to be judged. Abin Sur told Joe to beware of the weapons of Card. He then transformed into energy to return to his ship, which is shaped like a massive Green Lantern logo. Joe reached out to grab him, wanting more answers. Her gold wedding ring reacted with the light, drawing power from Abin Sur to itself and then into Joe, granting her the power of the green level of light. Abin Sur declared this as a chaotic action and screamed anomaly. The ship fell out of the sky onto Evergreen. Hal arrived and shot Abin Sur multiple times, but before the alien could die, he reached out with his decaying body to Hal, grabbing his hand. This decay passed on to Hal's hand, and the gun merged with his arm. transforming him into the Black Hand. The crash site of the Green Lantern ship was later acquired by Hector Hammond, one of the series' villains and a wealthy businessman. Meanwhile, Hal fled the town to avoid causing destruction as he couldn't control his newfound powers. He arrived at a small diner, but the Hand kept attacking people around him. Joe, now possessing Green Lantern powers, was drawn to the diner, and the two engaged in combat. Hal fully lost control and transformed into the Black Hand. Joe managed to drag both of them back to Evergreen. Upon their arrival, the ship reactivated, and they were both transported inside. There, they met John Stewart, now wielding the yellow light, as well as Guy Gardner, in control of the red light, alongside other residents of Evergreen who seemingly had no powers. This is where John explained all the complicated lore we went over earlier, and said that Mogo was soon coming to Earth. Joe, however, said that she didn't have to follow these strange rules. Using her powers, she managed to cure Hal Jordan of the Black Hand's influence. Then they fled the ship and hid in Coast City. Absolute Justice League. Let's finish off our video with the latest comic released in the Absolute Universe, Absolute Evil, which introduces this reality's Justice League. If you were paying attention, you probably noticed that all superheroes share a similar enemy, rich and powerful people who feel threatened by them. All of these villains call a meeting. The comic also shows a bit of the history of the Absolute Universe. We see this reality's Hawkman, who's been a superhero since around the 1940s. He unmasked his identity at the outbreak of the Cold War in 1951, began working for the government, and helped eradicate un-American activities. We also see this universe's Green Arrow, a billionaire who became disillusioned with the system and decided to use his wealth to become a vigilante. Meanwhile, Hector Hammond is invited to the secret meeting. There he sees Ra's al Ghul, Thawne, Veronica Cale, and the Joker. Veronica begins her presentation by showing various vigilantes throughout history. First, there was Wesley Dodds, a chemist who developed a knockout gas that he used to fight crime under the moniker Sandman, first appearing in 1939. Sometime later, he was found dead and his laboratory was ransacked. A year after that, the government created a deadly gas that became instrumental in winning the Second World War. Another vigilante was Ted Grant, a boxer who became the hero known as Wildcat after being framed for murder. Ted was bribed to quit his activities, and he accepted. Finally, there was Iron Monroe, a superhuman stuntman who became a political activist and vigilante. For his activities, he was blacklisted by Hollywood and lived the rest of his life in poverty and isolation. He was later assassinated by the government, but his official cause of death was declared an accident. Veronica explained that the status quo eventually catches up to those who go against it, either through violence or bribery. She then referred to a monster that emerged in Gateway City, saying that this was the second most dangerous person to appear that day. The most dangerous was Wonder Woman. She took control of the operation and the troops on the ground obeyed her. She then brings up Superman, who has been disrupting operations across the planet and inspiring people to rise up. Finally, there was Batman, a human, though Veronica was unsure whether he truly was human. Joker pointed out that he had tried to bribe him, but Batman refused the money. Veronica then mentions other heroes as potential threats and proposes that they can no longer deal with them individually. They need to team up to deal with those who disrupt the status quo. Despite her presentation, some remained unconvinced. To prove her point, she called in Hawkman, who dragged the dead body of Green Arrow into the office. Ra's al Ghul explained that this is how they will solve problems. Veronica added that from now on, each of them can get what they need with just a phone call. They can support each other with wealth and connections. Despite this, Thawne is still unconvinced, saying that powerful people like them cannot be friends. This is where Joker takes the stage. He shares a recent discovery his people made, but urges everyone present not to share the information. Unbeknownst to Joker, however, Brainiac is watching everything through Al Ghul's sunglasses, using powers of the Mirror Master. Joker discovered a fundamental building block of reality, which he has named the Omega Particle. It revealed a fundamental truth about their world. In addition to physical gravity, there's also a moral gravity built into their reality, which keeps everything in its place. The positions that everyone in the room currently occupies were supposedly predetermined by some higher power. Joker explains that those who go against this natural hierarchy represent injustice, and while they cannot be friends, they can be allies. Together they can form a league that will eradicate chaos and opposition, the Justice League. Brainiac, observing this speech, notes that each member of the new team counterbalances the others. Thawne's skepticism and Veronica's firm beliefs, as well as the clash between Hammond's and Al Ghul's massive egos, will bring balance to the team. Joker, however, is a wild card. He proposes that the League needs another member. He contacts a man living in a remote house on a farm. This man is revealed to be Lex Luthor. And that wraps up every story released so far in DC's Absolute Universe. This series has been around for only a year, and already became one of the most sold and sought after comics. If you enjoyed this breakdown and want to keep up with every new Absolute storyline as it drops, make sure to like the video, subscribe, and hit the bell so you don't miss any future deep dives. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned for future uploads.